How to become so productive it feels illegal. I want to be upfront about something before we get into this. Most productivity content is actually about performing productivity. You see someone with their perfect color coded calendar, their 5 different apps synced together, their morning routine that takes 3 hours before they do a single dollar of actual work. And it looks impressive, I'm not gonna lie, but none of that is the work, it's the aesthetic of the work. Real productivity is boring, it's unglamorous, and it's a lot simpler than the productivity industry wants you to believe. I run my entire workday off a piece of paper, a physical notepad with a short list of what needs to happen today. That's it, there's no app, no system, no fancy software, and I'm going to explain why that's actually the most powerful thing I do. But first, let me walk you through everything that changed when I stopped trying to optimize and started trying to actually get things done. Here's what happens when people get serious about being productive. They download 3 apps, they watch videos about no-show templates, they spend a Saturday setting up a system that will make sense to a project manager at a Fortune 500 company. And then Monday comes and they spend more time organizing their tasks than doing them. I have been there, I have tried the apps, I tried the elaborate systems, and every single time, the complexity of the system became the obstacle. Because when you have a beautiful organized app that took hours to set up, opening it up to add a task starts to feel like a commitment. And when adding a task feels like a commitment, you stop tracking things accurately. And when you stop tracking things accurately, the whole system collapses. The simpler the system, the more likely you are to actually use it. And a simple system you use every day beats a sophisticated system you abandon by Wednesday. The first thing that changed everything for me was using the simplest possible checklist I could think of. Every morning before I start working, I write down 3 to 5 things that have to happen today. Not everything I could do, not a complete inventory of my responsibilities. The things that, if I did nothing else, would mean today was a productive day. I write this on a physical notepad, not an app, not a digital document, not a project management tool. Simply a piece of paper with a pen, and when something's done, I cross it off. Simple as that. The reason this works is psychological. A short list of real priorities forces you to make a decision about what actually matters before the day starts pulling you in every direction. Most people start their day reactively, respond to whatever comes in first, and by 3 p.m., they have been busy for hours but haven't moved anything important forward. The list also creates a clear endpoint. When those 3 to 5 things are done, the day was successful. That clarity is worth more than any feature any productive app has ever shipped. The second thing I changed was working 25-minute blocks. This sounds almost too simple to mention, but the difference it makes is real. You set a timer for 25 minutes and you work on one thing and only one thing until the timer goes off. Then you take a short break, reset, and go again. What this does is give your brain a container. For example, unlimited open-ended work time is paradoxically harder to start because it feels like it's infinite. But 25 minutes is manageable, pretty manageable. You can do anything for 25 minutes, and once you're in it, the focus that comes from knowing the timer is running is different from the diffuse half attention of normal work. I use this specifically when I'm writing copy. There's something about the constraint that speeds up the thinking. You don't have time to second guess every sentence because the timer is moving and you're not done yet. The first draft that comes out in a focused 25-minute block is almost always better than what comes out of 2 hours of distracted open-end writing. The third shift was separating my thinking time from my doing time completely. One of the most expensive mistakes I made early in my career was treating planning and executing as the same activity. I would sit down to write and spend the first hour figuring out what I was supposed to be writing. Or I would start a project and stop every 20 minutes to reconsider the direction. The back and forth between thinking and doing is one of the biggest killers of momentum. Now I separate them completely. At the end of each day, I spend 10 minutes to decide what the next day looks like, what needs to happen, in what order, roughly how long each thing will take. When I sit down the next morning, the only job is simply to execute. The thing is already done. This sounds like a small change, but it removes the single biggest point of friction in a workday. The moment when you sit down and have to figure out what you're supposed to be doing before you can start doing it. That moment is where most productive time dies. The fourth thing is understanding that your environment is doing more than you think. What your work shapes how I will work in ways that are generally hard to override through willpower alone. A cluttered space creates low-level cognitive noise that competes with your focus. A space associated with distraction, your phone nearby, that's dangerous, the TV in the background, makes it harder to get into deep work because your brain has learned what that environment means. I keep my workspace simple and I keep my phone in another room when I'm doing focused work. Not because I have superhuman discipline, but because the easiest way to not get distracted by your phone is to make the phone inaccessible. Willpower is a finite resource, and spending on not checking your phone is a waste of resource you need to do the actual work. So design your environment to make the right behavior the easier behavior. It's almost always more effective than try to resist temptation through discipline. The fifth thing, and possibly the most impactful, is protecting your first 2 hours. The first 2 hours of your work are the most valuable hours you have. Your cognitive resources are at their highest. You haven't been worn out by decisions and interactions yet, and the day hasn't had a chance to pull you into reactive mode. Whatever you're doing, those 2 hours set the tone for everything that follows. Most people spend them on email, on messages, on things that feel productive, but are actually just responses to other people's priorities. I guard those first 2 hours obsessively, so I don't receive messages, no calls, no social media, just the most important work on the list, done while my brain is at the best. If you do nothing else from this video, try this for 1 week. Protect your first 2 hours every single day and using them exclusively for the work that actually matters. The difference is immediate and significant. That's why I would recommend it to you. The sixth thing is to learning to stop optimizing and start shipping. There's a version of productivity that is actually just perfectionism with better branding. You keep refining, keep improving, keep tweaking because you're not quite ready to put it out yet. And the work never ships because it's never quite good enough. Meanwhile, someone who started later than you and worked less carefully than you has already released 10 things and learned 10 times more from the feedback. Done and out in the world beats perfect and sitting on your computer every time. The feedback from real people seeing real work teaches you more than any amount of internal refinement ever could. Set a standard, hit it, ship it, and move on. The next thing you make will be better because you made this one. This is the honest version of productivity. It's simple. Knowing what matters today before the day starts, work in focused blocks with clear time limits, think before you execute, not while you're executing. Also protect your environment from the things that compete for your attention. Guard your best hours for your most important work, and when something is good enough, release it and start the next thing. None of this requires an app, a system, or a 3-hour morning routine. It requires showing up consistently and making deliberate choices about where your attention goes. I'm Kaya, and on this channel I break down the real side of building a business online. Subscribe if you want more of this.